right. Greetings and salutations from Cavland, USA. I am your host, CAVBoss, with my faithful companion, James. Hi, James.
As I. Hello.
You, I see you have survived for another show,
Yeah.
another week, another show.
By the had to fly by the seat of my coconut donut pants last week, just kind of winging it, making stuff up. I may have promised some stuff that you have to tell people no.
That's the reason I didn't go back and look at it, because I was afraid of what I
It's
might find, what was said, what was promised. Like, oh my gosh,
probably it's probably a good thing.
I'm in big trouble now. So,
Free badgers for everyone.
3 free badgers for everybody. Send in your proof of purchase and certificate, and off you go.
Literally. Krugerrand. Hello, Krugerrand.
Yes. Hello. Welcome to the land of make-believe.
Stompy. Big stompy make believe.
Big, stompy make-believe. So what did you work on Monday night?
So, the Slow Grow League is getting ready to kick off this Friday here in Tulsa. We got our first game scheduled for around 5 p.m. local time, Central Standard Time here in Tulsa. And two locals, Dan and Kyle, are going to duke it out, 1,600 points apiece, attack squads, sort of learning. And so I'm working on mine. My first game is against Pinky Princess, who you may know.
Yes.
She's famed for running an extra squad of Tiamats every time she plays, or something like that.
Sneaks that in on you. Watch that. Just tricky that way.
She did that to Smog once, but
Yeah.
I'm going to try and counterpoint. Anyway, so I've been painting on those guys. I got my 4 fire drakes and my duelist for my attack squad, and I've got them. I don't know. They're about 2/3 done.
Good.
I'm in the middle of basing them right now. And then so my plan is to have them done this weekend or finish them up on the Monday show at the very latest. But
Okay.
yeah, I got to get them done so I can get started on my support squad for the second round.
Well, cool. Glad somebody's getting to
Hello,
play a
Cthulhu.
game.
Cross our fingers. Lulu's in the audience. He needs to schedule a game against Ron, who is the Pinky Princess's royal companion, if you know what I mean.
Underling.
Yes, that's probably the honest truth.
The pinky underling.
There we go. The brain, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
This one. Hey, Elmarin, glad to see you, man. Ever faithful. That guy deserves a badge just for being here. I think he's been to more shows than me.
Well, he's got a star next to his name. That
Yeah.
means something. So I don't
Awesome.
even have a star. I don't think. So, well, let me give a little update of what's been going around here. I think I visited about it a little bit last night. We are tearing stuff up here. The main culprit in this whole thing is the new laser cutter. It ended up being a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, and it has taken up a lot of space that I did not plan on it taking up. So we are basically having to rearrange the entire back half of the shop to make all this stuff work. And it's everything's going to kind of be in a circle around a central work area. And so, warehouse shelves are having to be taken down and all the stuff taken off of them and moved. And you've seen my shelves, so you know that's.
I was just going to comment. I mean, the shelf is not the chore. It's the 80 gajillion Kickstarter boxes of miniatures, things from 30 years ago. That's the stuff that's taking all the time.
And luckily, I mean, I'm kind of using it as a little spring cleaning time. So a lot of stuff is, I'm doing that. What is that about downsizing or whatever, where you hold an item for 10 seconds or whatever, and does this bring me happiness or am I going to use it?
Yeah.
No, chuck into the trash you go.
I tell you what, John, your trash can don't throw. I will come empty your trash can. Don't let the garbage man have that
Don't let
thing.
the garbage man go. Yeah. So, and luckily with the addition of the new building over there, that's stuff is going over there too, to get out of the way. So, yeah. So it's pretty crazy here. We are finishing up some models that we're going to get on mold. We have been working on some new ones with a new sculptor, and the Thor. I don't know if you watched Chris. Chris missed his show Saturday, so Saturday before, he was finishing up the changes, the stuff that we needed the Thor to have better. But I think it turned out really nice. And then, and I do apologize for anybody that turned into the Saturday show expecting it to be there. I got told at the last minute, and I was over in Wichita when I was told. So I was like, okay. So it is what it is.
I think all told, as a little tiny Twitch channel, we do a pretty good job. We're pretty good about hitting our marks.
Yeah. So everybody, it's been a with everything going on in 2 weeks. You missed a couple of shows. I had to miss a couple of shows, so it's all fair. All works out good. We're getting caught up. I'd have missed another one last night. I had to just drag myself. I was so tired. Yeah. Hi, Chandler. So how are you?
About you
early
at the
before the
beginning
show.
of the show. Yeah.
I did. I got an email from you that I was explaining. So, and talking about the pictures, the kids playing.
And the Tiamats that you always have to face extra when you battle, Pinky.
That's right. The extra pink Tiamat. I'm like, oh, hey there, it's party time. The Magua, yeah. So it's a finished model, so it'll be on our list of pretty quick, because literally, I mean, we've sit around and talked about it, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be, we've got like 30 or 40 models done of between vehicles and aircraft, and a lot more than I thought we were. And so, I mean, we're going to be able to hit the ground running here with releases. So I may accelerate. We may, depending on, of course, we're still learning how to do all the new processes. So if we got to give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room, but once we get it kind of down and work out whatever else we need to work out on it, we may do some extra releases for the first few months just to kind of work through the backlog a little bit, because there's a bunch there.
It won't hurt my feelings. Honestly, I thought in my head, I thought you had released the Spatha. When I started making my list for the Slow Grow League, I was like, oh, I'll make a Spatha list.
Right.
But when I went to order them, I was like, what? Huh?
Yeah, we released those all, for CAVCon last year, didn't we? But we 3D printed them all, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in my head, somehow when I was designing my list, I was like, oh yeah, these are available, and I'm just going to order 4 of them and make this evil tank squad, and I had to run.
Lo and behold.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. He's teased me again and not come through, so.
You're fine, John.
So.
Our time's coming.
It is. Yeah, once we get all the like I said, this is all, it's all new and it's not new, if that makes sense. All the theory, we know all the theory because a lot of that transfers over from metal casting and everything like that, but it's all new technology, it's all new equipment. We are learning on the fly, so it's crazy. Is the Hornet? The Hornet is not available, but it is a finished model, I believe.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like right now we're seeing the storm clouds on the horizon. There's a little flash of lightning, you can hear the thunder rumbling. Pretty soon it's going to rain models. It's just going to come down torrentially on top of us.
Yeah, because like I said, we've got, that's one of our main priorities here for this summer is to get that release schedule started and going. So, yet in the books, that is my summer priorities. So, we are slowly but surely busting our way through the logger dam, and I see light at the end of the tunnel. So, and I've been finishing up some scenarios for the Flashpoint and getting those. Make sure I'm happy with those. So I'm not too far again with that. So I've started that 10 question series. I got my first one out last week, so I should have another one this week.
I was super happy with that article that you wrote about the communications. There's a lot of information and a lot of open space for people to think about.
Correct, and that's how I kind of wrote these. They're more of here's the nuts and bolts, but how as you go out and write, how can you apply that to that story and everything like that. And there's new things that always come up. I read a most interesting article today, and I've already been thinking about how I'm going to work it into the game. Are you familiar with what's the exact? It's the graphene.
Graphene.
Yeah, where it's the super material or whatever that uses graphite, carbon, and all that. That they're is going to be the future of things that they're making and all different things. And there's been a lot of stuff going on, but apparently, even as strong as it is very brittle. So if it gets a crack, it actually works against itself, and the crack expands and goes in one's direction and can crack. So obviously, there's a deal, but they have discovered a new material, and it's a mix of two material, and I think borite was one of the minerals in it. I forget what the other one is, but it's not as strong and durable as the stuff, but whereas in graphene, or however the exact wording of it is, when the molecules on it line up, they line up straight. And that's the reason why it's brittle, because if it gets a crack, the crack just can go up like this. Well, apparently this material, it's just a little bit not as strong as this, but because it has the two in it, they don't line up straight. So they're off centered a little bit. So if you get a crack that starts, it will go up and then it'll go sideways a little bit and stop cracking. It's super interesting to read, and it's all the stuff that you've heard they're going to do with that other stuff, they can do with this stuff 10 times better, and it's got a really cool name. So I'm like, this is going into CAV.
Okay.
So
I mean, is it armor? Is it construction material? Is it?
I think it might be part of the armor. I think it may work its way into armor or something like that, because of the way it's very easy to shape it, and get it in there. And, because that's always been, one of the things that, we've talked a lot about supply lines, and in the grand reality, if even as a galactic empire, if you were fielding these giant armies, you probably are not going to have 30 different tanks. Just the ability to get parts and all that stuff out there is just crazy. So, just like with here, with the United States, I mean, we have the M1 tank because those are all designed to be made and the parts can be traded out. I mean, literally, you can drop a transmission or an engine in an M1. It's all modular. You unscrew a few things and the whole thing pulls out and you put another one in. It's amazing how those are designed, that I've seen them, how they've replaced that stuff. So that's one of the things I've always thought about. Okay, so we're going to go, and I realize this is all sci-fi. So, and makes for a good story so that we have all these different tanks or whatever. But if we really were going to have all those tanks, how would we do something like that? And so, that's kind of where the theory, and it talks a little bit about in the book about how armor is done and everything like that, is, and especially with our nanites and everything that we use in the game, they use all these tanks for the most part and everything use the same armor, but there's a technique on how they form those pieces to replace damage and things like that, as far as how they would cut it out and grow, the piece that goes in there. And obviously 3D printing comes a lot into that too. In the future, they're going to have the ability to go to a 3D printer and, they need thingamajob A that hooks to thingamajob B, and they're just going to hit a button and, an hour later, here's the part. So, that's kind of a way to get over to kind of use a more scientific method to the unscientific method of having all these different vehicles without having all these different parts,
I always, in my head, I was as I was listening to you, I was thinking about, well, the supply people, the motor pool, they just have a bunch of big industrial 3D printers on wheels, probably, that they feed material to. But in my head, I've always imagined that the cutting edge stuff, the stuff that is right out there, like the brand new thing that gives, let's say, the A&Es their advantage, that stuff is not 3D printable. You know what I mean? It's still unique enough. It's still crazy, fancy, high-tech chicanery going on, that stuff has to be purpose built. And there's at some point in time, some of the things are just not mass producible yet. Now, and that horizon will move forward over time, so that whatever today's we can't 3D print that will eventually become 3D printable. But then the next newest thing is going to be the custom built massive installation, takes 5 technicians to put together.
Well, and I agree with you to that being all, but I think the individual components would still be 3D printed. They may have to print this and do this and this and this, and have the knowledge and the engineer that can take those parts and put them together and have the finished piece. But as far as I don't think that obviously, Star Trek uses its tractor transport or whatever, to do all that stuff, and changes everything on a molecular or atomic level. So, and it just basically they have vats of mush that they can make anything out of, and I'm not real big on that, but I think certainly in 300 or 400 years or whatever, that they're going to have the ability to 3D print anything. I mean, if you have a plan for it, they will be able to print a piece, but you won't be able to, if this piece is glass and this piece is metal and this piece is plastic or whatever, I don't think it can print all those pieces already assembled. I think you would have those pieces individually and put them together on something more complex. Now, something that was simple, like a wrench or something that, has something, I could see that being, but like you're talking about, more advanced technological items and things like that would require a whole nother level of, and especially if anything needed programming or anything like that, you still have to have the people that have the ability to do that.
And so listening to you, I was thinking about a star drive, right? So you could probably print the container and print the engines that generate some sort of magnetic bubble to contain whatever reaction is going on in there, right? But you got to put it together the right way, because if that containment field is not twisted the right direction, suddenly kaboom, right? And so to your point, you can make all those components, but then you need the artist or engineer or whatever who knows how to assemble them all and get them running properly so that, boom, you have a star drive.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's not, you couldn't go out there and push a button and 2 hours later it spits out a star drive. But you could start by printing out the different parts that they would have to be able to go in and assemble. So,
Riverman's got a great question for you there.
speaking of supply lines and parts availability, we know Ritterlich sells to Amethyl. Do other factions sell military gear as well? Like, for example, in the old JOR, CAVs were built by mega corporations and sold galaxy-wise. All right. Yes and no. And this is something that I'll have to expand on. This, I think I've got a couple of slots left, so you might want to put that in as a 10-question thing. But there are, obviously, a lot of this stuff can be captured and is sold through a secondary market. There are, especially in Terran space, and maybe it doesn't, well, just put somebody else's name on it, so you'll be good. Second, I'm losing my train of thought. It was a short train. So you have a secondary market where a lot of that stuff goes. You have, to a degree, in Ritter space, A-to-E space, anybody that has a level of commercialism to them, there are going to be companies that you could go to and purchase that. Does the Terrans go to the A-to-Es and say, I need you to sell me 10 Challengers? No. Okay? Could they go and do that if they wanted to? Yes. But they don't need to. They're making all this stuff or whatever on their level that they are. Where that level of selling comes into is to mercenaries, probably pirates through some kind of a phony front kind of a deal or something could be there. Security firms, independent planets, things like that. That's where all that stuff is going to be more bought through or whatever. The reason the Ritter is doing what they're doing with the Amethyl is to piss the A-to-Es off. That is a strategic military decision as opposed to a commercial decision. So that's where that comes in. Where you have a higher end corporation level, especially like in Terran and Templar space, then that goes even to another level. There's a whole level of CAV manufacturers that do not sell to the Terran government necessarily, but again, made for independent planets. The Fire Drake, those are all prime examples of stuff that are manufactured by a Terran company, but they're more for the private market. There may be some that find their way into a Legion for whatever reason, but for the most part, those are not Legion level models. Those are models that they sell to independent planets, governments, or whatever. Now, the way that the mega corporations were done in the original CAV, they controlled the entire government, the whole entire galaxy. They had all these corporations were the shadow governments behind the main government. That's not the way it is anymore as a whole. Now, obviously, it does have more of a pull in probably Terran and Templar space, maybe to a degree a little bit in A-to-Es because of the family system, the house system that I'll touch on later. They have a lot more pull behind the deal. But in my mind, that goes back to, especially with the rock and everything like that, is we took a lot of Terran ideas and rubber stamped them onto alien systems. And in my mind, that didn't work. So, obviously we have mega corporations even today here and stuff like that, but you don't know if that is how necessarily another alien race would have a corporation system or something like that. So that's kind of where that goes for is the mega corporations that are the puppet or manipulating the puppets from behind and stuff like that. You don't see galaxy wide anymore to the level like you saw in the original CAV.
Interesting. I like it.
That because like you said, and I I have said this 100 times. If I ever do another game in my life, there will never be another alien race game. That is, you have no idea. That is the hardest thing to write and to work into a game system if you are anal retentive like me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, again, we try to apply human norms and expectations to an alien race. That's not to say that they might not have that, but chances are they don't. Things have changed, obviously, especially if it's, a whole different, fish people or something like that. There's a whole nother level of what's going on there. But, and it's hard. I don't want the factions to be cookie cutters of one another. So I try to give each one a little bit of their own flavor and stuff. But at the end of the day, all that stuff has to fall back into a human direction so that you as a player can understand it. If you try to make such an alien thought process as to how they work and how they do and everything like that, there are some people that are going to think that's cool, but the majority of people are not. I mean, it's just, again, if you tried to make a fish people army and applied real fish people things to them, you're like, why can't I do this or whatever, or I need to do this? It's, it's because all your stuff is full of water, or everybody has to wear, bubble helmets or something, so it gets weird. And that's the hardest thing to work into the game, is to keep it with their own flavor, but by the same token, be human enough that you can, as a human, understand it and enjoy it, as opposed to being, I mean, you can look at, Warhammer, you can look at, Warhammer 40K, you can look at Drop Zone, Dropship Commander and stuff like that. They have, Warhammer has the Tyranids. Sorry if I'm not. Tyranids. There I go. I had to think about it for a minute. And there's a couple of races like that in Dropship Commander that are so weird and off that there are people that can get behind it and enjoy it. But there's a reason why those are you don't see a whole lot of Tyranid armies. Because people have a hard time wrapping their heads around being a bug, I guess, or whatever, So and that's just my observation. It may be that I haven't been out enough, and out of every 10 armies, 9 of them are Tyranid. I don't know. It's just, I know that going to the number of conventions I've gone to over the last 30 years plus, and watching games played, it is 90% of the time Space Marines. So
I think a lot of that has to do with the way the company, GW in this case, writes their rules. Space Marines sell, everybody likes Space Marines, so Space Marines tend to get good rules, which makes them popular, which makes people buy them, which makes them popular, which makes people buy them. Right. And it just chases itself around in a circle.
Right, but does that popularity start from the fact that you as a human can look at him and know that, hey, that guy looks like the Rock. I like the Rock. I want the Rock on my army. So.
That being said, I agree with you in principle, but if they were to write the rules so Tyranids were the top performing army and they won a lot, they would rise in popularity, and those models people would be just pleased, just as happy to play those models as possible.
No, it's certainly if you're a mega gamer, I'm kind of applying the normal, when you're talking about a mega gamer, you can throw all that stuff out of there. I mean, they'll play rocks. If they can win everything with an army of rocks, that they will have the best rock army that there ever was. So, and I'm not talking our rock, I'm talking rocks.
Space rocks.
Space rocks. I get to roll around everywhere. So, there's that. But like I said, it's I still think, with everything being equal, there's a lot of players out there that would never play a Tyranid army just because they don't want to be a bug.
They don't identify with bugs.
Right.
I get it.
Right. So.
So in this hypothetical future where there's another game, it sounds to me like what you're saying is we're going to get this galactic human civilization that fragments and has time to culturally drift apart from each other, and then somehow finds a way to reconnect, and then you get these humans that are different. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not different as in like alien, just
Right.
hey, we grew up with a feudal system and we're a giant democracy and we're a bunch of nomadic hunters and we're this other group. They're all human ideas, but exaggerated because of this cultural drift.
Maybe. I mean, that's one way to skin the cat. I've always been very particular towards the way they did it in. Did you ever play 2300 AD?
I'm familiar with it, but I never played.
Okay, it's kind of a tie-in with. It's actually the future based upon the Twilight 2000, and it also kind of ties in with Traveler a little bit too. But in those particular games, the number of planets, the number of systems are much smaller. You know, that's the other thing is I'll never have a 500 light year, 10,000 planet game or whatever too. But in those particular games, and I've read some books too, some novels that are out there, is as we colonize space like we colonized Earth. So this planet ended up being France's planet. This planet ended up being Britain's planet. This planet ended up being Russia's planet. And sometimes some of them had multiple nations that claimed different parts of it or whatever. And then everything advanced from there. And I've always thought that would be a cool way to do a futuristic miniatures game that is more based upon the nation states that we have now, and how they would apply to going out into space, and that habitable worlds are a lot less plentiful, you know. So worlds that obviously people can live on and everything are high end worlds that everybody wants, and you basically get that period of civilization, here where everybody was colonizing the new world, so you had the Spaniards and the French fighting over this and over these colonies and all that stuff like that, and I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, you could literally just look at a slice of time in history where the history is interesting, the Age of Discovery, which is what you're talking
Right.
about, or maybe the Napoleonic era, the Age of Sail, one of those periods, and just take what happened historically and shift it forward in time and change the technology and the words, and keep the kind of approach and the stories and the things that happen the same. I would play that game all day long.
I think that it would be pretty cool. I read and another cool thing that I read, and on a particular series of books that was kind of cool, is that it's kind of same with that thing, but they had a random system that was orchestrated and run by the UN. So you like the United States, we could go out and we could find a world, okay? And we could lay claim to that world and do whatever we wanted to do with it. We were recognized as owners and everything like that. But, and I'm maybe misrepresenting some of this a little bit, but every third world or every fourth world discovered or whatever goes into a random system. And the random system then chooses a nation or a set of nations that gets to settle that world. So there's no way that Nambia in Africa doesn't have a space fleet that they can go out and find a world and colonize it and everything like that. But because of this system, they are given the ability to settle and move people to that planet if they want to, or a section of, or whatever. And everybody else has to go along with that. And that causes a whole series worth of problems from the fact of, if the first 3 worlds you find are basically versions of the moon, but number 4 ends up being the Earth 3 or something, but if that planet is discovered and that's a planet that goes into the draw, that causes a whole nother set of problems. Hey, we got stuck with the crap world. We don't want, we're the United States of America. We get whatever world we want. and everybody else is like, oh, no, that's not what you agreed to, So all of a sudden the United States of America finds itself on the wrong end of, 10 other nations, all underneath the auspices of the UN. So all kinds of cool stuff there. Okay, so cool. Well, I know now what the smugglers are getting from the rock. Parts for the dictators, Krakens, malefactors, con, everything. Yeah, well, and there's a whole, because I don't know if we did it live or not, that you and me have talked about this a little bit, about the rock. There is a layer of rock that are not, you got to remember the rock is a case system. So obviously your warriors and the priesthood and everything is on top of that. But then you have this whole level of the merchant, the manufacturing people, the things that do that. And as you get into and learn how the rock evolved from 2 different groups, there is the original, the rock, and then there are the VAR. And the VAR were a much more commercial merchant type group, trading, almost kind of like the Venetians, during that time. And they're controlled now by the rock, but there's still that level of, and they obviously have to respect and be scared of the warriors or whatever. But there are certainly rocks out there that you throw a few rubles their way, they're going to, and that's, whether it's smuggling parts or whatever. So you have that there. And then of course there's that whole nother level with the scavengers, that are hitting the battlefields, that are stripping these things down for parts. So.
See, I can see a whole sort of subcurrent in rock culture between the rock and the VAR, where the VAR are like, oh yes, of course the rock are in charge. Wink, wink.
Right.
They get to lord it over us and go die in glorious battle. Wink, wink. Meanwhile, we lowly VAR have to hang back here and make all the money.
Right.
Wink, wink.
And to take that to another level is the VAR are pissed off that they have been conquered by the rock or whatever, and they've spent the last 500 years planning the biggest screw over of all time. That they have planets that they've managed to get people out to and are training and building their own. I'm not trying to give anything away. I'm just saying, that there might be rock out there that are willing to side up with the Adenese or something like that. And hey, let's get rid of the shitty guys and put us in charge. You never know.
Did you ever read a series? I want to say it was by Larry Niven, maybe, The Man-Kazin Wars. Have you read that?
Yes.
So there's that whole subplot in there where the Kazin are this ferociously aggressive alien race, and
right.
I won't spoil everything, but essentially over time in conflict, they get sort of evolved or into a less aggressive race, because all the aggressive Kazin die.
Right. Mass extinction from the fighting and everything like that. And that's something too that happens in rock deal as all. If you really want to, without going and reading all the books, if you've ever played Wing Commander, I'm not saying that when they wrote Wing Commander that they ripped all that stuff off of the Man-Kazin Wars, but it's pretty scary if you look at how the two are done. So
yeah, seriously.
Are CAV more military only, or is there a civilian type CAV? There are civilian type walkers. A CAV is a CAV. A CAV is a combat assault vehicle. So there are probably some security that are maybe not as large or as well armored or whatever, for security work or whatever. But there are CAVs, walkers that are used in civilian for construction, there's a whole level of things that you can do with CAVs or walkers, and it wouldn't necessarily be a 30-foot tall walker. There may be 10-foot tall ones or whatever that are used to load ships, things like that.
That being said, the idea of military in the CAV universe is a little different from ours, right? So
Yeah.
in the real world, you cannot own an M1A1 Abrams.
Right.
Unless you're the military or the company that makes them, you don't own that thing at all in any way, shape, or form. But in CAV,
you could
mercenary companies.
Right. Well, you've got mercenaries and everything
anything.
like that, but they can't keep track of everything. If I go and buy an M1 and I live in El Dorado, Kansas, and I park that bitch out in my driveway, everybody knows that I've got an M1, okay?
Right.
But if I can get that M1 out to the boonies of Australia, that there ain't nobody around for 200 miles, I can go out there and power drive an M1 all day long and nobody will ever know, So that, and they'll take that to another extent that I know that you have an M1, but you're 10 worlds off and you're doing whatever you're doing. I don't have time to go out and find you and whatever. You just do whatever you're going to do. Now if you take that M1 and sneak into my Legionnaire barrack in the middle of the night and kill everybody, then that's a whole new ball game. That's going to make me stand up and go, okay, all right, we need to find that M1, But so you've got that, just the scale, the amount of place anybody can hide if they want to,
So let me ask a question about that. All right, so
Yeah.
from as far as I know, in the CAV construction rules, a mercenary force can purchase any model available in the game. Like there's nothing off limits. The biggest, nastiest, the Kodiak, whatever. Anybody can own anything, right? There are no restrictions. So the faction militaries don't hold anything back for themselves. We have the cutting edge technology. You can't sell this brand new whatever it is to the mercenaries because we make laws that say you can't. Somehow the mercenaries can get their hands on anything. Is that stuff falling off of trucks, or is it just signing a PO with the company?
I would think it would be both. And again, that's a whole nother, that's getting into nth level of, but there's, a whole lot of role playing elements there and stuff like that. Obviously, the A to E's, with their advanced stuff or whatever, there's a good chance that they probably are not going to leave a bunch of A to E's calves laying around for anybody to come and get them and take them and deconstruct them or whatever like that. So, there's a level of there. But that's you as a player, how you want to write that story. I'm not saying that it can't happen. Does it happen as a regular deal? No. Whereas The Rock don't care. I mean, if they don't need that stuff, they're going to leave it lay where it goes. They don't care. Whereas the A to E's are going to be a little different. Or, you have a new CAV or a new vehicle with some new weapon system or whatever. They're probably going to be a little more paying attention to those as opposed to random every day of the deal. So
if there were such a thing as the official CAV slice of the game, there is some of that holding things back for use only by the faction. Mercs would have trouble if some new release that you haven't even told us about comes out and it's the new hotness. It's got a brand new weapon system on it that we've never seen in the rules before. In the official CAV universe, the faction is holding on to that. They're not selling that to the first mercenary company that wanders by.
Right, and in the sense of that's kind of, I touch on it a little bit, but because of the rule system and not wanting to get into that level, that's what you see with the export versions of those CAVs. like the version of the Rhino that gets sold, or the version of the Tiger or whatever. If if we were getting into that fine of detail and everything like that, the weapon systems, the ECM systems and all that are not the top of the line that the Ritter would use. Okay.
Right.
How I kind of took that into effect was with the DTs. I dropped the DT off of all the exportable versions. Okay.
The fallback has one less.
Right. Exactly.
Gotcha.
So, but if I was going to take it to a level of what it really probably would be, is you probably ought to deduct one off of the armor, one's off, that particular Mac is not as good a Mac as this Mac is, okay? So, but I didn't want to get into that level on a war game level. Down the road, when we, if we're doing some kind of a role-playing supplement or something like that, that might be something to take more into account, that there is the export version of it. And, prime example is the F-16. We have sold F-16s to everybody and their mother out there. But the F-16 that we sell to, or sold to Saudi Arabia, or even with F-15s and everything, that's not the F-16 and the F-15 that we fly. It may look like it, but there's a big difference in the avionics and everything in them, big time. So, I see a giant construction crane on a set. Yeah, there's going to be cranes. There's going to be all kinds of. There's going to be ones that go out that have to pick up, calves out on the field to move them. What's the best thing to move a calf would be some kind of a walker, a giant walker that can go out there with claws and hook onto that thing and pick it up. So, but yeah, there's repair units. There's a whole level of stuff out there.
So now we need a one-off scenario where two repair companies from opposite sides show up and fight without the benefit of the actual, regular armed forces. And so you've got these repair units duking it out over something.
But again, that goes to a level that we just can't cover some of those ideas in a war game, because to me, there's going to be, CAVs out there that they took the arm mount off of a Starhawk and put onto a Dictator. You're going to see stuff like that, and the rules allow you to do that, but you on your end would have to add to that story. I'm not going to spend 30 pages of a rule book explaining how to make these, on that level. Maybe down the road as part of an RPG or something like that, that's where that kind of stuff comes in. The problem that you get into, if you get too caught up in the weeds there, is Battletech. There's a reason why there are 10,000 Battletech books, okay? Well, you actually have that now. That's the reason there are. The Simba is actually the base for 3 different models now. The Simba became the attack model that it was supposed to be. Then there is I don't have the list of them here. I think that they're the African words for giraffe and elephant, I believe. Yeah, Timba's one of them. But there's out of those 2, there's one that's an open model, which I think is what the original Simba was, which is the transport. Because I didn't want to it became the CAV with the ability to transport infantry, because we didn't need one of those for every faction. So that's what that became. But then the Terrans also have another one that's a fire support version of the Simba.
What about the Devastator? That's a big quad cab that you've released the stats for. Is that a Simba chassis, or is that something new?
No, it's going to be something. It's a one-off. I don't know exactly how we're going to end up doing that. It was just something to, because it's very crunchy.
It is
You know,
very crunchy.
yeah, it was. Let me sit down and let me think of what's the greatest. If I just didn't care about the story or whatever, and just wanted to make a death machine, how would that death machine be made? And that's what the Devastator is. But to me, it's they're very few and far between. They're because they're more of a defensive.
Right.
They're
So
slow. They're a
plotted
slow
and
walking
slow.
bunker. Yeah.
Right.
So
Easy to hit.
you were trying to protect a set point or a city, or you would have one of those there to be the anchor. But as far as they wouldn't take them out into the field and put a squad of them out there to go fight. So, not to mention you get a +1 to hit them, so
They are easy to hit.
they are easy to hit. Woo! Look at that. It's already 8:52.
So do we get, again, not in the war game, not in the game we're going to see on the tabletop, but in the grand scope of the universe, are there big like siege, not siege guns, big installed guns like defensive works where they take like a Mac and they upscale it to stupid
Yes.
size?
Yeah. For it to shoot ships. I mean, literally,
Right.
they have the ability to, especially on the older, more developed planets. I mean, they put planetary defenses because it's a lot easier to have a gun or something down there that they can use to shoot a ship out of. Yeah, if you do not want to orbit a planet until you have that planet somewhat under control, or if they have planetary defenses, there's a good chance that you orbit in that planet with nowhere to maneuver and the range, you're dead. You're hit before. It's a big difference as a spaceship. If you're 500,000 miles from everybody, you have a little bit of, oh, hey, somebody just shot a missile at us. You have a little bit of time to do something about it. If you're 32 miles away and they fire a hypersonic,
It's already here.
Yeah, hey, whoops.
It's the other ship that goes, hey, somebody just shot a
Hey,
missile at that.
somebody
that
just
gas
shot
pile
Bob.
over there."
So yeah, so you don't want to be in orbit if there's planetary defenses. So
So, so if you were to conduct a planetary assault, does the space force just drop rocks on the planet? I mean, how does that work? That seems like the cheapest, simplest way to attack a planet to me. You just roll things down its gravity well.
right. Well, yes and no. I mean, obviously that you could. That doesn't make a very fun game. But in all reality,
that's
that's
story.
yeah. I mean, in all reality, that's if you were trying to do that, that's exactly what you would do. You'd roll some rocks off and go. The main thing that keeps that from happening to a level of it's not to say that they won't use it a little bit, but those are part of planetary defenses. Most of the worlds realize that that's going to be an issue if somebody wanted to do it. So they're going to have systems in place that they can shoot something at it to knock it out of orbit or something before it actually hits them. But the main thing that falls back to the bigger rocks and the nukes and everything like that is if you do it to us, we're doing it to you. Okay? So there's a little bit of that mad, even to the point the rock have learned to, they learned the hard way. Did they plasma bomb the Terrans? Because they thought they could get away with it. If the Terrans are all dead and everything, nobody's never going to know about it. We're out here doing our own thing. But they probably got their fingers swatted over that somewhere. That's a whole nother story there. Yeah, you've got big lasers. You've got they're used a little bit in the game as far as anti-armor, anti-CAV weapons, but the X-ray pumped lasers that you can buy in there, I think they're actually the highest damage penetration weapon in the game. But they take larger versions of those and basically set a nuke off in space and use the power from that to power a one-shot laser. pretty ugly. You can do a lot of damage to a rock headed your way. Yeah, if you ever get a chance, do a Google search on nuclear pumped lasers. It's it's scary and cool at the same time. They do use those in Honor Harrington, but he borrowed those from, that was actually something that was designed back in the 60s.
I just remember reading Robert Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And that was the first time I really understood what you could do with just a rock that was strategically placed.
Well, I mean, even from his, because he used that in lots and lots of books, but especially Starship Trooper. That's how the bugs attacked Earth, is they were sending rocks in from outside the solar system, and by the time they got to Earth, they were going so fast, they couldn't stop them, and they were taking out, Johnny's parents, in Buenos Aires got wiped out because of that. So, yeah, no, that certainly in the future and everything, the things that you can do with rocks and stuff like that would be pretty devastating and very cheap. I need to go out and bust a rock off and take out a whole country. But, like I said, it falls back to, that's not very fun to play in a game. That's a little too much reality. And B, there is always that, if you do it to me, I'm going to do it to you. It's the reason why we haven't used nukes on each other yet.
Just a good story has got to have a reason for why that doesn't happen. It's like, it's got to make sense. It's got to be internally consistent. And I mean, it's a simple, cheap tactic. We have to understand. There has to be a reason why it doesn't happen when two races are trying to exterminate each other.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. At this point, there's nobody out there that is fighting a war of extermination. At this point, like I said, the Rock tried to get away with it. The Adenese have had their problems in the past with it. But, experience, history is a great teacher at points. And you find out very quickly that once you open a box like that, you may not get it closed before you get several of your fingers chopped off.
And to kind of circle back to our earlier note about maybe the Rock becoming a little less aggressive, perhaps the hotheads that decided to plasma bomb Earth didn't survive that experience long enough to pass their attitudes on.
Yeah, you're going to find, obviously, everybody's got this version of the Rock in their head from the things that we've talked about and the stuff that was kind of shown. But a lot of that stuff is 200 years ago. If you really look at even in the history in the main rule book, in the new book, a lot of the stuff that they did really, really bad and stuff like that, it's been 100 years since they've done it. The Rock have had to learn, that's how the Adenese got the Rock to come to the peace table the first time, is experience was a great teacher there. The Adenese and the Ritter, at that point especially, was so much more technologically advanced. The Adenese the Rock would jump on anything and fight like that. But, how many times did they get a phone call? By the way, your entire Rock battalion has just ceased to exist. So, they had to learn, hey, technology is obviously a great equalizer. And as they've been exposed to humans and the Adenese and everything like that a lot of the politics and how people do and stuff that they never would have thought of from the way that they came back. And you're going to find that out. That the Rock are not as nearly as black and white now as we've kind of shown them in the past to be, as they've had to integrate with the rest of the deal. So, and it, like I said, the VAR, things like that's been exposed to other races. That stuff falls into that. And there is, that's come up before. There are rock that for whatever reason, again, they didn't fit the mold. That there's rock out there that are serving in other alien Merc units. There are rock that maybe moved to a planet because they wanted to grow flowers. They grew up on their deal, and hey, I don't want to be this killing machine. I want to go grow flowers. And then Jack stays back there and finds out that Bob's off here growing flowers, and hey, that doesn't seem like such a bad deal. I want to grow flowers too. And now there's an entire colony of rock on this planet growing flowers. So, there's a multitude, anything you can think of is possible.
I like it.
James, do you want to go grow flowers with me?
I love flowers.
I know you do. I've been seeing that. Let's go grow some flowers together. It's 9:00. Let's get off here and let's go plant some flowers, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. Anything that we need to hit right off the bat that is imperative that you need me to say something about this minute? If not, we're going to get off here.
Nope. I think you covered a lot of cool stuff.
Bueller? Yeah, we ended up talking a lot more about stuff I didn't think we were going to talk about tonight. Especially when we started off before we got on. Hey, what are we going to talk about? I don't know.
Literally.
I don't know what the hell.
It's like the beginning of every show.
Yeah. What are we going to do tonight? So someday we will have a technical assistant that puts all that stuff together for us. We have little notes and everything. And all we do is sit down and do the notes, follow the notes. Hey, you're supposed to, commercial, push the button. So anyway, Chandler, I did answer your email. I'll see what I can work out for you. Okay. Other than that, say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see y'all later.